she talking that smack. Turn the volume up, facts on facts. Mic stay hot like a stovetop crack. She say what she want, ain't holding back. Truth so sharp, might cut through cap. Drama tea or a wild girl chat. She break it all down with a twist and a laugh. Blunt lit up, let the thoughts all stack. Eyes half closed, got the world on track. They throwing shade, but she don't react. She too high up, never looking back. Ain't Mac, talk that, talk it, smack that. Floating above, all the haters just yak. She got that smoke in her brain on blast.
Wake, bake, slay, repeat that scene. Commentary crisp, got the vibe so clean. Weed stay loud and the mind stay mean. She queen of the real in a smoke machine.
Ain't no filter, say it raw. Laugh so loud, make the trolls go aw. She a cloud walker, never gonna fall. High and mighty, tell it all real tall. Talking smack, never backtrack. Straight from the dome, no script, just facts. Eyes on the throne, haters looking whack. She roll up truth while the rest just act. So tune in quick, don't miss the facts that say Mac talking smack, yeah, just like that.
So tune in quick, don't miss the facts. It's a Mac talking smack, yeah, just like that.
Yeah, she talking that smack. Turn the volume up, facts on facts. Mic stay hot like a stovetop crack. She say what she want, ain't holding back. Truth so sharp, might cut through cap. Drama tea or a wild girl chat. She break it all down with a twist and a laugh. Blunt lit up, let the thoughts all stack. Eyes half closed, got the world on track. They throwing shade, but she don't react. She too high up, never looking back. Ain't Mac, talk that, talk it, smack that. Floating above, all the haters just yak. She got that smoke in her brain on blast.
Wake, bake, slay, repeat that scene. Commentary crisp, got the vibe so clean. Weed stay loud and the mind stay mean. She queen of the real in a smoke machine.
Ain't no filter, say it raw. Laugh so loud, make the trolls go aw. She a cloud walker, never gonna fall. High and mighty, tell it all real tall. Talking smack, never backtrack. Straight from the dome, no script, just facts. Eyes on the throne, haters looking whack. She roll up truth while the rest just act. So tune in quick, don't miss the facts that say Mac talking smack, yeah, just like that.
So tune in quick, don't miss the facts. It's a Mac talking smack, yeah, just like that.
What is up, everybody? Thanks for being here. It is Tuesday. We're gonna go over some. Now, listen, I didn't get to talk with a lot of people about the Karen Reed trial while it was going on because I was very busy and I was kind of catching up. And let's be honest, listening to a trial is fucking hard sometimes. Listening to testimony, I'm a visual person, and so I found this creator that has gone over what really happened to John O'Keefe based on the medical expert's testimony. And then this bitch basically fucking solves it for me. she tells us her like theory, but I kind of believe her because this bitch has I keep saying bitch. Bitch is a term of endearment for me. Okay, so if you guys haven't followed this channel yet and you're into the Karen retrial, you need to subscribe. It's called I Don't Belong Here with Samantha Beningo, I believe it is. She is a behavioral scientist, a master's level psychologist, a sixth year PhD candidate in clinical psychology, and a career psychotherapist with 25 years of experience. Also, ChatGPT told me she might have been a corrections officer, maybe. So she knows her shit. So I'm listening to her, like I said, her shit popped up on my feed because of the Karen Reed trial. The algorithm grabbed that and brought her to me. And so I the other night couldn't sleep, popped on one of her videos where she goes over the McAlbert's interview and her theory on what the 227 house long to die in the cold, why that Google search happened, and like I don't want to spoil everything because I'm literally like trying to go to sleep listening, but I cannot. I'm like, oh my god, like she nails it. And some of you guys might already have this information and these theories going on in your head already, or have talked about it, but this is all kind of just connecting for me. So I wanted to share with you guys, especially since the last few lives I've done has been Karen Reed. So Michelle, hello, Emmy. I know it's late for you. Thanks for being here. I don't know if you're still working. Hopefully you get to be out soon. Nicole B, what is up? Evil Queen, Twist. Thank you guys so much for being here. Okay, so first I'm gonna let's put her share channel copy. So this is the channel. So we're gonna go over two videos that this girl did. First one is, like I said, we're gonna go over Dr. La Posada. Oh my god. This fucking Mac camera always does. Okay, let's see. I tried to do this last time and it wouldn't work. Come on, give me the lasers. It doesn't want to do it now. It did it when I was like now I just look like a stupid idiot. Meow. Oh, maybe it'll do it. You love balloons. I know, I don't know what I do that makes it do that, but okay. So we're gonna screen share. Okay. Let's get into it. And I'm gonna put this on okay, it's on 1.25 because so this is a 25-ish minute video. We won't watch it all. I'll try and skip through parts we've already like seen the footage and shit. But the other one's like almost 2 hours. So buckle in, grab your snacks and your drinks and your White Claws. We're gonna do this. Okay.
So I can't show you this because YouTube won't let me. It will block the video if I try. But what this doctor just
Okay, and then also if you guys have seen at the top, so text to speech is on. So that means if you guys super chat anything, it will read out what you guys super chat. So kind of a little fun thing. But please be mindful of YouTube TOS with your messages if you do decide to do that. Okay.
said, and the reason why the defense team went and looked for steps to determine whether John O'Keefe's injury came from steps is because of what Dr. La Posada just told us. She told us that there was so much force at the bottom of the skull.
Okay, first things, I love her nails. Okay, so they were looking for steps because there was so much force. He had so much force come to the front of his head.
That fractured the skull at the bottom. But the injury to John's head was in the middle top. Okay.
So he had a fracture on the bottom and the middle top. So that's why they were looking for stairs.
Okay. So what she's saying is that he had to have fallen so that the base of the skull was immediately fractured in multiple places. But that wound, the gash, is higher up. And then it has those like scrape marks, like he hit and then went back. So in order to have both of those things happen, there must be stairs. Ah!
Or a ledge, some sort of like tiered, surface, like something like with a corner and a.
There's no way he gets that from just falling backwards on grass. It's not possible. It's not possible.
I love her facial expression.
That is the reason why she is so sure that he died so quickly. And once again, Hank Brennan can't help himself. Takes out the shovel and just starts digging a hole.
And that's what is funny, because that's exactly what I told my husband it's like towards the end when he was cross-examining Dr. La Posada, Dr. Dimples, and Dr. Ham Sandwich, that he just gave up. He was trying his hardest to throw off the witnesses, to try and make them slip up on something with dumb questions. Okay, we might have to put this on 1.5 speed because
you examined his brain after you looked at photographs. You can't tell us objectively when his brain swell started.
It started immediately after impact.
Okay. So that was an example of like how dumb Brennan was. He was like, you can't possibly tell us exactly when this happened. She's like, yes, it happened about right after impact. So Evil Queen Yaya, they have a theory, and it's wild. I'm sure people have seen the pictures of the garage if you haven't seen it, or the garage.
And you can tell us what the progress of that brain swell was by looking at his post-mortem photos.
By looking at the postmortem photos and the postmortem examination, I can tell the degree of force from the extensive skull fractures that were present.
What was the degree of force?
It was medium to large.
Well, that's a wide range.
That's a wide range. Medium to large.
What do you mean? Quantify medium
I'll
to
strike
large.
the comment.
Please.
Ask the question, Mr. Brennan.
What does medium to large mean?
Enough to cause a lot of fractures to the skull. He didn't just sit down and lie down.
If he sat down and lied down, he probably wouldn't have fractured his skull, correct?
That's obvious, yes.
Right. And so when you're telling us you can identify that he immediately died or died within 15 minutes, I'm asking you for objective criteria. For you to give that opinion, I'm asking you what objective information you have. And so you said that there was a large amount of force, correct?
Sure, because there were massive skull fractures, and there's a lot of energy transmitted to the brain, starts swelling immediately.
How do you know this wasn't medium force and not large force?
Like, come on. Why are we comparing medium and large force? Are you sure it wasn't a grande? It was not a grande force, but a vente force.
Because of the extensive number of skull fractures.
So are you saying it was medium or large force?
Medium to large.
Okay. How much force is that? Can you quantify it?
No.
Did you see that? She's like, I'm about to fucking show you what that force is. I'm about to demonstrate that force to your head, bitch.
What other objective criteria do you have to support your opinion that Mr. O'Keefe died within 15 minutes?
My training and experience of seeing thousands of deceased people from head injuries and knowing some of their clinical course, when they get immediate medical treatment, they don't survive.
And this case is going underwater faster than anybody could possibly salvage it. With every second that goes by, this case is over.
Okay, and mind you, I think this came out, gosh, hold on. Let's see okay, so this video is 2 weeks old. The next one we are going to review is a lot more recent, but I wanted to watch this one because she describes his injuries and basically paints the picture of what happened.
At this point, if Karen Reed is not exonerated, something is amiss. Something is wrong, because the evidence is just undeniable. I can only pray that the jury understands what Dr. La Posada just told us, because her explanation today exonerates Karen Reed and points directly to the time between midnight and 1 a.m. to whoever was in that house. John O'Keefe, his phone was moving from the street in a westerly location towards the house. The injuries on his nose and on the top eyebrow.
Okay, so pay attention to this shit because, like I said, when she said she hopes that the jurors were like understanding what the doctor was testifying to, I couldn't picture it the way she describes it.
Guess what would give you that injury? Look right where the knuckles meet the face. He has an injury here. He has an injury here. He falls backwards. He was definitely punched. There's no question about it. He was definitely punched. And then he was attacked by the dog at some point before he died because there was blood.
Okay. And another reason why I wanted to show this is because, it's the question of, okay, well, what really happened? If it was proven Karen didn't do it, what the fuck happened? And that is my brain with true crime. I want to know, I want to solve the equation. And okay, I know I keep saying that, but let's keep going.
But it was a very short window. Could it have been during the time when Brian Albert would have taken the dog outside? Because he did just get home? And everybody said, oh, the first thing that dad did when he got home is take the dog out. Is it possible that was the time, the window here that this happens in? Absolutely. Is it possible that Brian Higgins is waiting in the Jeep? He's not inside the house when Karen Reed pulls up and lets John out. Is it possible that Brian Higgins is waiting for John, meets him right at the door, and the two of them walk into the garage? There's no entrance from the garage into the house. So whoever was in the house may never have seen John at all, and very likely didn't.
And that's why that's why everybody in the house feels comfortable saying they didn't see him. He didn't come in the house because he went into the garage. And there was a door that went, I think it was the front door, the side door, and then the garage door.
What if he goes into the garage and not if Brian Higgins grabs him immediately and pulls him into the garage? John O'Keefe was dead 15 minutes later. And every second that Hank Brennan continues to badger this woman, she's going to make it more and more impossible that John O'Keefe could have been alive. I've been going back, like I said, and I've been watching some of the old testimony. And totally by accident, I stumbled upon evidence, the most compelling evidence that I have yet to see, that 100% convinced me that Brian Higgins is involved in John O'Keefe's death. Now, I was going to save this for after the trial, for my theory of the case video. But given everything that we now know, thanks to Dr. La Posada, I'm going to show it to you right now. Forget about the waterfall. Forget about the police station after. Forget about the butt dials. This is the moment where I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that Brian Higgins is responsible, or at least holds himself responsible for the death of John O'Keefe.
Shit. Okay, here we go.
Now, before I show you the clip, I have to give you some context.
I wonder if it's the clip of him. I wonder if it's the clip of him in the police station.
You need to know that Brian Higgins comes from a long family of firefighters, and that he was a lieutenant firefighter who decided to leave his position and become an ATF agent because he had a friend who was working for the ATF and said, come work with me. That's probably the same friend that ultimately wiped his phone and gave him those texts that he eventually brought to the Canton police. So it was a very big deal because he comes from a long line of firefighters. Now, when I think about firefighters, what comes to mind, because I live in New York City and I have for 20 plus years, 9/11. And those men.
When I think of firefighters, I think of my stepdad. Sadly, because now he's an asshole. He's my ex-stepdad, but growing up, he was a firefighter.
Who were going up the towers at the World Trade Center when everybody else was coming down. And I've seen everything you could see about 9/11. You see all the firefighters saying goodbye to each other because they know. They know most of them aren't coming back.
Okay, I didn't know we were going to get emotional.
So if you come from a family of firefighters, you come from a family of police and law enforcement and military, these people take that really seriously. Your grandfather, your father, their father.
Now I'm going to cry.
That's a big deal. And what we learned about Brian Higgins in this testimony that is handled so brilliantly by Alan Jackson.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, it's one of the most brilliant moments. This entire.
So she's referring to the first trial because remember, Higgy Higgy didn't testify at the second trial.
Epic saga of these Karen Reed trials and hearings and the whole thing. Alan Jackson gets Brian Higgins to think about that. He gets him connecting to his integrity, to the way he wants to think about who he is. That he's the kind of man who would put his life on the line to save other people, to save other law enforcement agents. And when he does that, Brian Higgins tells us everything we need to know about his involvement in this case.
Correct?
So this is wild because I'm not a psychiatrist, a psychoanalyst, or whatever she is. Sorry, I'm not knocking her job. It's probably very hard, and she did a lot of school, and I bet she's really great at it. But
Yes. Nothing obstructing your view? I mean, other than snow on the car. Nothing obstructing your view outside, toward the lawn? Wasn't another car parked there? No, I didn't. There was no vehicles in front of me, no. It was the roadway was relatively empty. There was no cars. And you didn't see a body then either, did you? I did not. And as you drive past that flagpole with everything lit up and everything in your peripheral vision, you still didn't see a body on that lawn, did you? I did not.
and he's not lying because he probably did it. There wasn't a body there then.
You're a former firefighter, is that right? Yes. Did that put you in a position of being a first responder? Yes. And you're currently a law enforcement officer? Yes. That puts you in the position of being a first responder, correct? I'm also a tactical medic, yes.
And so notice he had to add that in. He's a tactical medic. Okay.
Which means that you have training to be an observer. You're a trained observer, more than the average person, correct? Yes. You look for things out of the ordinary. You look for things that don't belong. As an investigator and former firefighter, first responder, correct? Yes. And you did not see a 217-pound man bleeding out on the side of the road in the lawn or in the yard, just to your right by that flagpole, correct? If I did, I would have done something to help him. I asked you if you saw one. No, I did not. And that's because there was no body there, correct? I didn't see anything. Because if there was a body there, you certainly would have seen that. Objection.
Now, I want you to put yourself in Brian Higgins' shoes.
Yep.
If you have absolutely nothing to do with John O'Keefe's death, this was not your brother, this was not your childhood best friend, this was not somebody who you were particularly close to. He's a guy who 5 minutes earlier, you were perfectly willing to take his girlfriend and start a relationship with her. Now, to be fair to him, he didn't want to do that unless the relationship was legitimately over. But he's not an idiot, and neither are any of us. Let's think about that. Was it really any better if Karen Reed was still in a relationship with John and then says, I'm going to leave you now, and then all of a sudden takes off into the sunset with Brian Higgins? Does that really look better? Is that better for Brian Higgins? I mean, I guess in his own mind. So if you have absolutely nothing to do with the death of John O'Keefe, why would you start crying on the stand about his death? Look at his face. What do you think is in Brian Higgins' mind? Right?
Oh, he's probably like, I wish I didn't eat that Taco Bell. I wish I didn't text Karen. I wish. Just kidding. That's a bad joke. But like for real, I didn't even like think of that. I saw that he got obviously, visibly moved by it. But like I said, she's the psychiatrist. Michelle, is he missing? Fuck. Hey, Emmy, welcome back. Hey, Grandma. Hey, Queen J. Okay, so for those that are just joining us, I came across a creator that she is okay. Let's take a little break ski from Higgins and his visible regret. Okay. So this channel, I will drop the link again, is called I Don't Belong Here. And Samantha Benino, which we will actually go through her credentials again, but she is, I don't want to call her a psychiatrist again. Okay, so she is a behavioral scientist, a master's level psychologist, a 6th-year PhD candidate in clinical psychology, and a career psychotherapist with 25 years of experience. My ChatGPT also told me she is a former corrections officer. I don't know if that's true, um, but that's what ChatGPT told me, and I thought that was actually kind of cool. So, okay, so I came across her channel. She got thrown into my algorithm because of all the Karen Reed shit, and so I listened to the next video we will watch. We're almost done with this one, but she described John O'Keefe's injuries. And how the doctor described his injuries on the stand, and then basically, let us visualize like the cut on his nose, the cut on his eye, where do the knuckles hit, right where those cuts are, and then his other injury was on the side of his head. And then because of the injuries to the back of his head, it happened really quickly. And she was making us visualize he had hit something that was like almost like a step. Oh my God, I'm sorry. Thanks, Emmy. I hit it.
They knew he was gone.
Thanks, Emmy.
This is the look of a man who's contrite, a man who's sorry, a man who's responsible, who holds himself responsible for what happened to John. This is a man who believes it's his fault, who knows it's his fault. And you want even more evidence than this. At 11:30 on January 28th, 2022, Brian Higgins texts Karen Reed, well, like, so did you make a decision, Karen? Is that it for us? We're not stupid. Everyone on the planet knows what that text meant, okay? Every one of us. Whether you hate Karen Reed or not, you cannot deny what that text meant. We all know what it meant. Well, Karen, what's up?
Okay.
We've all seen the waterfall videos. We all know what the situation was that night. You know, I know. Brian Higgins was texting John O'Keefe moments before.
Try to pause it. So she is sped up, so she's not really that, talking that fast. She's at 1.5 speed.
Before he died. Are you coming here or what? Not Karen, John. And if he has nothing to do with John O'Keefe's death, nothing at all, when Karen reaches out 12 hours later, the very next day, the very day that John is pronounced dead, minutes later, basically.
That's hilarious.
Or what amounts to minutes later, Brian Higgins goes radio silent. Radio silent. Now,
radio silent. Doesn't text her again after she says John.
If you're going to try to make an argument that it's because he thought she was a killer and he didn't want anything to do with Karen Reed anymore, you are out of your mind. Go back and read those text messages again. There is never a moment where Brian Higgins does not indicate interest in Karen Reed. He never at any point says, well, you know what, forget it, Karen, I don't want to do this. Even after Karen Reed says to him, John is onto us. And not only that, as time goes on, as it gets closer to this day, Higgins tries to double down. He says, I really like you. I've always been attracted to you. I've always liked you. And here's the moment that he's been waiting for. It's his moment to swoop in and be the hero and be the shoulder that Karen Reed can cry on. And instead, not 12 hours later, after the well, Karen text, he disappears. He never reaches back out to her again.
Oh.
And if you are going to try to sell yourself on an argument that's because they think Karen Reed is a serial killer, you are delusional.
A serial killer. Get the fuck out of here.
You are absolutely delusional. Because even if these people didn't have anything to do with it, which they did, these people are responsible. This man right here, this guy, this face, this person that you were looking at is responsible for the death of John O'Keefe. Is responsible for the death. This guy is the guy, okay?
She's fucking like, she's saying it's him. I mean,
maybe Colin's involved.
And also, she said she's going to keep like going through evidence and stuff and like the trial, and she's gonna keep researching this shit. And she said she is going to find justice for John O'Keefe, which I'm like, more power to you, girl. More power to you, girl. Let's get some clapping. Hopefully that didn't scare anybody's cats. Sorry.
In some way, and yes, the dog was there. This guy is responsible. Brian Albert is the fixer. That's the face of a guy who knows he's a coward, who knows that his actions on that night and every day since, he took the coward's way out. That's the truth about what happened that night. And that's the truth about Brian Higgins.
Okay. So we don't have to hear her berate him anymore. Okay. So now we're going to go to the video that I was like, hold the fucking phone. Hold the fucking phone. So just gonna break it down how their actions weren't just fucking shady, like to all of us, but calculated. They fucking calculated this shit. And it is going. If you already didn't kind of have this in your head, I'm sorry, I'm pulling up my timestamps because this one is a long one, so I'm gonna try and make sure we have timestamps of the good stuff. Okay, so. We'll start at 1.25 speed. All right. Are you guys ready? Hold on to your butts.
La Posada, the chief medical examiner formerly from the state of Rhode Island, who has been a witness in countless states across the U.S. and who made clear once and for all, and this diagnostic assessment by.
Actually, let's start at the beginning.
Oh my God, you guys.
Okay, first things first. Her green screen must be the same color as the stripes on her shirt because why can we see through her arms? I'm so scared. She's a fucking ghost, you guys.
Holy crap. So
if she's a ghost, maybe she knows for sure who murdered John O'Keefe because she could see everything.
I was just editing this video. I'm trying to get this video out as soon as I can. And as I am listening, it dawns on me why it is that Brian Albert did not come out of that house.
God save
Y'all, it's fun.
Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
We're gonna find out why the fuck he didn't come out of the house. Why?
Welcome.
Here's her credentials.
This is the I Don't Belong Here show, and I am your host, Samantha Beningo. I am a behavioral scientist, a career psychotherapist, a 6-year PhD candidate in clinical psychology, a master's level psychologist and counselor. And I am here breaking down what was the Karen Reed case and what now is the Justice for John O'Keefe case. Family and this incredible defense team. We've got the McAlberts going on their little tour. We've got Michael Proctor, lead investigator Michael Proctor, doing his damage control. And we've got the attorneys, Alan Jackson, David Yannetti, and Bob Alessi speaking out about their experience in this case. Welcome to the post-Karen Reed case about seeing justice for the defense's case that last week, where we heard from so many incredible professional experts, helped immensely.
Let's get to the timestamps. Okay. So we went over the whole Dr. La Posada and the injuries. Okay, so let's get to 444.
La Posada was not just the coup contra coup injury, and that is the bruising that was evidenced on the back and in the front of the brain that would have occurred from gravity, from the force that John O'Keefe would have sustained, hitting his head, and then the brain inside the skull being propelled forward. What happened was the back of his skull, the bottom part was shattered, and the combination of the swelling that was occurring inside of the brain and that collapsed skull caused the brainstem caused the brain and the brainstem to collapse in on themselves, which would have crushed all of the neurons that are responsible for things like respiration and heart rate. And that meant that John O'Keefe would have been dead almost immediately. That opinion, by the way, was not just from the defense's medical examiner, Dr. La Posada. It was shared by the Commonwealth's Dr. Isaac Wolf.
Okay, so both doctors, Commonwealth and defense, said that he died instantly. Because of his injuries, he was dead instantly. So think about that, like right away.
This means, though, that John O'Keefe was never left out in the cold, ever. He wasn't left out to die, not by anybody, not by Karen Reed, and not by anybody in the house at 34 Fairview.
Okay, so he was never left out to die. He was never left in the cold to die. I was gonna say something, but now I forgot.
What does that mean? It means that John O'Keefe had been dead before he was put outside in the cold. Now, once you understand this, everything else that happens after makes a ton more sense. Everything from Jennifer McCabe's 911 call, the behaviors from all the folks in the house, including Brian Albert, who didn't come out of his house, and to all of those people that just couldn't imagine how a person like Brian Albert wouldn't have tried to save John O'Keefe, would never have left him to die. They are correct. He did not have to do that because John O'Keefe was already dead.
Okay. So, dear Brian Albert, you saying, what am I going to do? Run out in my underwear? Run outside in my underwear and put some yellow tape all around? Like, that comment wasn't fucking necessary. It gets worse or better. No, I think it's worse.
So nobody left John O'Keefe to die in the cold. He was dead. In fact, by the time Jennifer McCabe stumbles upon that body, and I say Jen McCabe because she's the person who makes the 911 call and insists on 2 occasions as she's speaking to dispatch that he was dead.
2 different times she says he's dead. That's why she says it so definitively, because he died instantly. They knew he died instantly.
Yeah, I guess he's gone.
I guess he's gone.
Okay, they don't feel comfortable doing so? No, I think he passed away.
And now she says it again. She doesn't go near the body. Remember, she does not go near this body. She has gone right to the phone. She's the one that calls 911. That's her designation.
Hey, Pookie, thanks for being here. No worries. But yeah, so that's why she didn't go and try and save him either. She just got on her phone, was talking to the police. She's like, nope, that's a no for me, dog.
Last thing that you're going to do is pronounce them dead. And at that point, he was dead for probably around 6 hours. And the only reason why that was not assessed by the first responders on site is because if there is a suspicion of hypothermia, the body temperature drops. So it's very difficult to tell whether somebody is dead, has passed away, or is suffering from hypothermia. And I believe this to be universal, when first responders stumble upon that type of situation, they are not to be called, that person is not to be determined to be passed away until their body temperature is attempted to return to normal at the hospital.
Okay. I'm going to rewind that, because when I fucking heard that shit, I'm like, it was calculated. They put him out there. They put him out in the cold because they knew that he couldn't be pronounced dead at the scene, but they knew he was already dead. So
it's very difficult to test by the first responders on site is because if there is a suspicion of hypothermia, the body temperature drops. So it's very difficult to tell whether somebody is dead, has passed away, or is suffering from hypothermia. And I believe this to be universal, when first responders stumble upon that type of situation, they are not to be called, that person is not to be determined to be passed away until their body temperature is attempted to return to normal at the hospital.
So it wouldn't have off the fucking gate been treated as a homicide because he hadn't passed away yet. He was suffering from hypothermia. So that means they would have had to bring him to the hospital and do all of that stuff before they could pronounce him as passed. And Brian Albert fucking knew that.
Because people do come back from the dead. They freeze and they come back from the dead. That's the reason why John O'Keefe was not pronounced dead until later that morning. And we get plenty of indicators of that from Jennifer McCabe, who, by the way, is the world's worst liar and can't help herself but to tell us the truth hidden inside all of her lies in the hours and hours of testimony that Jennifer McCabe ends up totaling. After we add up both trials, the first trial and the second trial, she spends like a collective 6 days on the stand. So we get an endless amount of information from Ms. Jennifer McCabe, and all of that gives us a lot of information about what happened to John. So let's take a look now at this interview with ABC.
Okay, so she goes into the ABC interview and... Okay, so it looks like my next timestamp is actually just a couple seconds forward.
At first, I couldn't figure out why they'd be doing this. I mean, I'm sure they were paid handsomely. Maybe that was a motivating factor.
So she can't figure out why the McAlberts are doing this interview. For one, all of these people have claimed that they've been victims of witness intimidation, relentless harassment. So why are you putting yourself on national TV, on Nightline? Like, listen, I know putting myself on YouTube and doing this puts me up for scrutiny that it's just part of it. And so to put yourself in the limelight when you are saying that you are being harassed, it doesn't make sense.
But I have to believe they are aware that there is a much larger army of Karen Read supporters than there are people that are supporting of them, certainly publicly anyway. And I'm not sure if this is an appeal to the average person who is not familiar with this case, but if you are familiar with this case, then you are also intimately familiar with the evidence and are absolutely sure that Karen Read did not hit John O'Keefe with her car and therefore could not have killed him because she was not on the scene. Okay. And that's not the only bit of evidence either. I mean, there's nothing but exculpatory evidence of Karen Read's involvement across the board, but that's not what this conversation is about. We can talk about that at a different time. So that leaves the people in the house, and that's the house at 34 Fairview is owned by this man, Brian Albert. So clearly, this is not helping matters. If anything,
we're like really
you would think laying low after the verdict, hoping that this goes away, would be the smarter position.
Yeah.
Right? Inciting emotion would be the less smart decision, would be the less intelligent choice here, right? Because all this is going to do is make people like me furious and scream and yell even louder.
Okay. So we'll go to... Okay, so she basically says, this is a revenge tour. Brian Albert is the fixer. But I really want to get to this 1855. Okay.
With Karen Read, when Karen Read calls her to look for John.
Okay. So if you have been following the case, or I guess, any of the content creators that have been following it, I think Mark Betterow found this 507 call that they didn't know about, I guess, the first trial, or it was there, they just didn't see it. So there was a 507 call from Jen McCabe to her sister, Nicole, owner of the house.
And what she is doing. It's also the reason why at 507, as soon as she hangs up with Karen Read, when Karen Read calls her to look for John, going, do you know where John is? Because Karen Read would have known that Jen McCabe was in the house at 34 Fairview. So she calls Jen McCabe looking for John. As soon as she hangs up, Jen McCabe calls over to her sister's house, 507. She calls Brian Albert asking, what the hell should I do? And at that point, Brian Albert says, go to her house, right? Let's control the narrative. Now, great. We're in a position where we get to determine how this whole thing goes, how John O'Keefe's body is found.
Okay.
So you also have to understand that the reason why she was Googling, Jen McCabe was Googling how long to die in the cold at 2:27 in the morning.
Okay. So this makes so much sense. But of course, my puny little brain didn't connect these dots in the beginning. But now that she says this, and I'm going to back it up just so we can hear it from the beginning. Oh, light bulbs went off.
O'Keefe's body is found. So you also have to understand that the reason why she was Googling, Jen McCabe was Googling how long to die in the cold at 2:27 in the morning, is because, you got to hand this one. This one, I will say, was quite brilliant on the part of Brian Albert, who I am absolutely sure is the one who came up with this. He figured, knowing as a former Marine and a former first responder, actually at that time, he would have still been a Boston cop. So as a first responder, as a former Marine, he would have known that if somebody is suspected to be out in the cold, to have suffered hypothermia, they cannot be pronounced dead. And it was a genius decision on the part of Brian Albert. And that is the reason why Jen McCabe is Googling how long to die in the cold.
So I think she's going to explain this. So basically, Jen McCabe was Googling how long to die in the cold because she wanted to know what time they were putting or needed to put him outside to show signs of hypothermia.
Given the timestamp of 2:27 and 38 seconds on January 29th for that Safari suspended state tab with the It's Raining Men, what did that tell you about the timing of when It's Raining Men was accessed by the user?
Yeah, well, so the indications would be that that tab was brought up and then went away from to do another tab. So it can happen less than a second. It doesn't take long to open up a tab and start a new tab. Can be done very quickly.
I'm not really phrasing this the right way to get what I want. What I want is the timing of the interaction with It's Raining Men.
I see.
My phone user. When did that happen?
Well, certainly, all the activity that we have is all prior to the recording of that timestamp in the browser state.
All right, now, with regard to this particular example where the browser state DB is the last entry, so the activity happened before, was that unique on this phone, or were there many examples of this?
Actually,
No,
let's get to the next timestamp, which 23.
Was at what point
Okay. This is where she explains it.
And comparing to other data on that phone and the way it presented it out itself is all consistent with that search happening at or before that time.
the question was, at what point should we put John O'Keefe's body outside? Because at what point would it be viable to pretend to assume that he died from hypothermia?
Okay, people in the chat that have been following this case. Did you ever think that was why she was Googling how long to die in the cold?
Question was, at what point should we put John O'Keefe's body outside? Because at what point would it be viable to pretend to assume that he died from hypothermia? So that is the purpose of that Google search. So you'll notice, at least in the clips that we've seen,
Okay.
Brian Albert is
Grandma, you're smart.
in charge. And you feel that, right? It's not a coincidence that he's the one seated right in the middle. He's in charge of this group.
See, I had a feeling that some people probably have already connected these dots, and I'm just very late to the party, which I'm used to. Okay, so let's see, 29. So this is another kind of sad thing.
Find something here. As he doubles down on the lie that they had nothing to do with John's death, he is also, or this group of people, has made every effort to keep John O'Keefe's family close.
So something very true. They've I feel like done a lot to keep the O'Keefes very close. I've always thought beef in the house and the basement. They put him a body outside. Well, and then oh gosh, they might show it. I thought they showed it in the last video. It might be in this one. Have you seen the garage pictures? Because apparently there is a place in the garage, and they like threw or spilled a red paint on it, and people are like, "Oh, is that to cover the blood?" But there was like a ledge thing in the garage. Oh, I keep trying to hit play.
And it's really sad. It's really sad. It's like, can you imagine? People have asked me, do you think
Okay, evil queen didn't know. Okay.
Peg O'Keefe will wake up and realize that Karen's innocent? And the answer to that is no. Not only because she's completely, brainwashed or whatever you want to say, completely convinced, I guess, but because at this point, to believe that the people in the house are responsible would actually be scary, would actually feel like a threat to her safety, because the folks in the house, Jen McCabe, for example, has gone to such incredibly great lengths to try to keep Peg specifically very close, and so close that when the FBI shows up at Jen McCabe's house after she gets home from dropping her children off at school, she sees that there are FBI agents in her driveway.
And she lies, she says she's her sister, and then she calls 5 people, one of them being Peg O'Keefe. And her theory is that she wanted to, check in with her, see if anything was off, if they actually, were being investigated by the police. Anything. Not the garage basement. That's why they replaced the floor. Okay. Let's see. So, okay. Well, why is she called Peg? 32. Let's go a couple minutes. 32.
I explained that I had forgotten to mention a couple people that I had reached out to.
You had forgotten.
I contacted Matt.
Let's go through it.
Yeah. I know 4 off the top of my head.
Okay, let's go through it. Okay. Contacted your husband, correct?
Yes.
Sorry that it is very fast because she's at 1.25 and she probably sped this up. But look how scared Jen McCabe looks. She looks like a fucking deer, like a deer in
You contacted Gary Roberts, correct?
Yes.
You contacted Peggy O'Keefe, correct?
Yes.
Then, Ms. McCabe, you contacted the district attorney's office, correct?
My witness advocate.
The district attorney's office.
My witness advocate who works for the district attorney's
Thank
office.
you, Ms. McCabe. And you also left out that you contacted Brian Albert himself, correct?
Yes, my brother-in-law.
For some reason, your brother-in-law, who's the 30-year Boston police detective, correct?
How
Yes.
hurt she looks.
And on whose lawn John O'Keefe was found dead or dying. Okay.
I love that.
Correct?
Yes.
I mean, unsurprisingly, she calls Brian Albert because Brian Albert is the person that she goes to for direction. I mean, this entire way, the whole time, Jen McCabe seeks direction from Brian Albert. So, of course, the feds show up, she's going to call him. But she calls Peg O'Keefe. And that shows you how much, to what great lengths this family has gone to try to keep Peg O'Keefe close. And in my guess, I'm guessing on this, it's because this way the thinking was, well, if the feds got to Peg O'Keefe and sat her down and showed her the evidence that we did this, she won't talk to me, or she'll scream and yell, right? She'll either won't answer my call or she'll scream and yell. So the first thing she does is call her to find out whether or not, these guys are about to arrest her or why they're there, what they want, if anybody else has been interviewed and all of that.
Like, are you mad at me?
Blamed Reed for O'Keefe's death. The defense said this group of family members.
Okay. So she calls Peggy, to basically check the temperature. See if she's mad, see if she answers, see if she's like, fuck you, Jen, you killed, you're responsible for John's death, whatever. So I just love how like Samantha, I keep wanting to call her a psychotherapist. No, she is a psychotherapist, psychologist. So the way she is trained to look at these behaviors and notice these things about what these people say, it's just super fascinating. Okay, so that was okay. So she goes over Colin Albert. I don't know if we really want to get into Colin Albert. Okay, let's go to Chris Albert. Too far, a little too far.
This guy who was a pizza shop owner just so happens to be a part of the group, a part of the body, the selectman for the town, who then has jurisdiction over the police. And when the town was voting or insisting that there be an independent audit on the police department because of this case, guess who voted against that? And he was overruled because so many people in the town insisted there be an independent audit. Chris Albert. If you have children, what would you do to protect them from going to prison for the rest of their lives for something that they did, probably blackout drunk, the one time they make a mistake, they do something stupid in a blackout drunk episode? What would you do? And how would you go about protecting your child from the possibility of a life in prison? If moving far.
So that was a lot. Chris Albert, after, I didn't know this. I didn't know that he ran for the select board after John O'Keefe had passed. And they went and we skipped some Colin Albert stuff, but it was stuff we already knew about him. his "I'll fuck you up," "pull up, bitch," the fighting videos, Bev, you know, sustaining objection, not sustaining, yeah, sustaining objections, like when Colin was being cross-examined and all that stuff.
Away wasn't an option, which it is not for the Alberts and the McCabe's. They're not leaving town. They're not moving to the other side of the country. That's not their style. No way, right? Brian Albert has 6 siblings. He's the oldest of 7, right? I mean, how many Alberts, how many cousins do these kids probably have? There's no way they're leaving town. So what's the alternative option? Oh, I know. Put key members of my family in positions of power to ensure that nobody ever gets close to my child. Build a wall of protection around them. Keep them close and make sure and use every bit of leverage and power that I have, that I built, that my family has built in the town that we've had for generations of our family have grown up in, to make sure that my child avoids prison. And that is what tethers him to this case. That's why he is there, because Chris sees himself as the defender of Colin. Like, in order to get to my son, you got to come through me.
Clearly, you have a lot of ties to the city of Canton. Would you agree?
Sure.
You live there?
Sure.
Yes.
You work there?
Yes.
You have family there?
Yep.
Okay, everybody
there?
wait, hold on.
Yep.
All right. Notice he's rocking himself. Notice the rocking. His shoulders are going back and forth. That's behavior that he's using to try to calm himself down, right? What do we do when we're trying to calm a baby down? We rock the baby, right? So just notice the body language, notice the eyes, notice that he's tensing up, right? And so he's trying to calm himself down.
Yes, Eliza. And how, yeah, they wouldn't even allow him to be a one of the third-party culprits. Like, they went through some extraordinary lengths to protect Colin. And again, hello, Steph. Thanks for being here. Okay. So, okay. Now this was interesting. So after this, they go over like the Nebuchadnezzar thing with, they get off my lawn, how I guess the Albert kids would throw beer cans on John's lawn, and so there was this, this feud. Okay, 55, 58. Okay. Yeah, Judge Bev. Fuck Judge Bev. Oh yeah, I do want to show you guys. So Lindsay made this for me, and I don't want to put it up for a long time just because I don't know. I feel bad. But here is a flash of Undies Albert. He is there in the corner. He is our emotional support Albert, as well as Chloe. So he's gonna say hello for a couple seconds, and he's gone. Okay. And just so you guys know, the text to speech is on. So any super chats, it will like read it out. It's kind of cool. Okay, so, and that's not like a dry bag. I just wanted you guys to know that's what this little text to speech like on thing is why it's there. Okay.
Each of you been called murderers? Like actual murderers?
Oh, yeah, on a daily basis. Anybody who's touched this case has been called a murderer at some point.
All right, so this is a fascinating little discussion here. First of all, they're called murderers because they are responsible for the death of John O'Keefe. Not all of them, obviously. Everybody in this group has different levels of culpability. I actually don't think anyone in this group is directly responsible for his death. I think Brian Higgins is the one that actually, beat John up and caused the fall. But Brian Albert is the fixer. He's the one who says to Brian Higgins, just get out of here. I'll take care of it. And that's why Brian Higgins goes directly to the Canton PD. You also have to know that Brian Higgins used the Canton PD to crash in Canton on nights when he would get really drunk and didn't want to drive back to wherever he.
Okay, the reason why Brian Higgins went to Canton PD straight from the Albert's house is, I would have never thought of this, but
was living at the time. But on this night, the reason he goes to dispatch, which is the first place we see him walk into when he goes to the police station, is to find out whether Brian Albert was going to rat him out, because he wasn't sure. So he goes to the KNPD, goes right into dispatch, and he's hanging out there for a period of time.
Do you recognize the person in this video?
It appears to be Mr. Brian Higgins.
Okay.
Isn't that fucking wild? The reason he went to KNPD is to see if Albert ratted his ass out.
And what is he wearing? Describe it for the jurors.
Black sweatshirt with some sort of logo on the front. It appears to be blue jeans and shoes with a white trim.
What do you see in that video?
It appears to be an individual wearing a black beanie hat, black dark colored sweatshirt with some design on it, and something illuminating by his face.
Can we enhance the time, please? What time is that?
It says 1:34 and 53 seconds.
Try to see, like, did Brian Albert do me dirty? Did he call this in on me? And he doesn't. And he didn't, right? Now, we know that Brian Higgins is on the phone at 1:30 in the morning at the police station. I will go out on a ledge and say it's very possible that he's talking to Brian Albert. We don't know that for sure.
And Brian Higgins, who's the ATF agent that was in the house, signed a proffer agreement.
Okay.
And he sat down with FBI.
So, what the hell? Okay, let's go. Oh yeah, this is gonna. Kind of want to see her little diagram she made, but that's not one of my timestamps, and I don't want to veer off course.
To their bedroom.
She was just upset, and I immediately thought something had happened to one of her children or one of my children.
Right. So this is Nicole's rehearsed statement. You know, this is what she knows she's supposed to say. I immediately thought something happened to one of her children or one of my children, because these two are expecting us to believe, and they really expect you at home listening to this, you to believe that Brian Albert, a 30-year veteran of the Boston Police Department, who was a former Marine and the eldest of 7 children, 5 boys, 1 sister, he wants you to believe, and this, by the way, is his parents' home. This is the childhood home. The house that we're talking about at 34 Fairview, that wasn't his house. That was the house he took from his parents, okay? It's his parents' property that he lives in with his 5 children and his wife. Brian Albert wants us to believe that the cavalry shows up on his front lawn and nobody wakes up. He doesn't know they're there. He also expects us to believe that
they're a bunch of ghosts. It's just some ghost ambulance.
Have a 90-pound German Shepherd sleeping underneath, right at the window that
again with her ghost arms
overlooks the flagpole where John O'Keefe is found.
You owned a dog at the time, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not believable. Okay. So they're going to go through his testimony again. 1:15:47. Okay, so this is when she goes into why Brian Albert did not come out of the house.
Inside that house.
You weren't worried about it at all because you knew what really happened, didn't you?
So why doesn't Brian Albert come out of the house? Why does he go to such great lengths to try to pretend like they didn't know anything was happening? And where's Chloe, who we're being led to believe never makes a sound, even though she's sleeping right next to his bed, by his side, in the bedroom, which overlooks the front lawn, okay? Now, of course, in reality, Chloe was removed from the scene. I don't know if Chloe was murdered, if she was shot on sight, if Caitlin Albert, which is maybe the more likely scenario, the eldest daughter of these two, whose boyfriend comes and picks her up around 2 a.m. that morning, in all likelihood, the 2 of them take the dog with them. Because there's no dog in this house. No dog is ever seen, no dog is ever heard, and these 2 idiots both claim that Chloe was there, she just never made a sound.
The fact that she calls them these 2 idiots, I fucking can't. But it's true. How are we led to believe that that dog was there and didn't make a sound? And German Shepherds are supposed, like, they're protector dogs, right? I've never owned one, but I mean, they're police dogs, so you would think that they are supposed to be, protectors. My ex was a paramedic. He could identify sirens from blocks away. Yeah, well, and it's like, even if there weren't sirens, just because I don't know if there would be sirens because there was no traffic and it was like a blizzard, but the lights, like, I wish I had a picture of 34 Fairview, and we can't look at, okay, hold on, let's see. Let's take a look-see. We're going to take a detour, 34 Fairview. Images. Okay. So, my house has a lot of windows in on the main street, right? The main road where like any ambulances or anything like that would go down. My house lights up like it's fucking the 4th of July when there is an ambulance going down the road, even if there's no sirens. Look at how many windows there are just on that front side of the house. You cannot tell me that whole house was not lit up. Right? I heard a theory that the daughter took the dog. Yeah, that's what people think, is that the daughter and the boyfriend took the dog. So, oh shit. Like, that house would be lit the fuck up. And you can't convince me otherwise, because I have a similar house with a lot of windows on the side where the lights would be, and that shit lights up like crazy.
Now, we also learn from Nicole Albert on the stand that this dog has gotten out of the gate before to attack other animals, other dogs, and had a history of biting people.
She's a large German Shepherd.
Yep, about 70 pounds. No, she did not like other dogs.
Ms. Albert, Chloe has injured other humans, hasn't she?
Objection.
I'm going to allow that. In one incident in May of 22, when she got out and was fighting with another dog, the woman whose dog it was tried to break up the two dogs, and while she was trying to break up the two dogs, she got injured.
And you mentioned that Chloe had actually escaped from the backyard in that incident.
Yes.
And that happens from time to time at your house, correct?
It had happened a few times, yes.
And Mr. Albert let Chloe out when he arrived that night, correct?
Yep.
And this, by the way, is very part and parcel to how German Shepherds behave. And that's not to crap on German Shepherds. That is coming from a dog expert who has explained that German Shepherds were bred very specifically to be defense dogs. And as a result, in their DNA, even German Shepherds who have no bite history, who've never been aggressive, can all of a sudden one day shoot out the front door and attack the postal worker. It would not be at all unusual to imagine that Chloe could have escaped the front yard, particularly if she knew that there was some kind of a violent altercation taking place in the front of the house, say, for example, in or around the garage. For those,
Okay.
Those of you that have not seen John O'Keefe's injuries, I cannot show them here, or YouTube will not show you this video. But if you look up, attached here is a link to a video that I did in a way that is acceptable to YouTube, where you can take a much closer look at John O'Keefe's injuries, and you will see his arm, and you will compare his arm to other dog attacks, and you will see that there's absolutely no question whatsoever that John O'Keefe was bit and scratched by a dog. It isn't even a question. Okay? It is not a question.
Okay. So 121, next timestamp. What she believes.
A bit more clear. You have to understand that to understand what has happened in this case. You have to understand John was dead. He died immediately, and they panicked. These drunk people who had been drinking all day, Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were drinking all day. They get back from New York City around 6 p.m. They go out to eat. They start drinking. They continue the party at the waterfall. They get there around 10 p.m. They keep drinking. Brian Higgins, you can see on the waterfall video, is rubbing his eyes. He looks like, he's about to fall over. And of course, Brian Albert has a history, as per his wife, of fighting when he's drunk, of actually beating up other police officers when he's drunk, one of whom is Eddie Hernandez, who he mentions being with earlier that day.
My personal theory is this.
Shit. That is wild. He has a history of getting drunk and fighting other cops. What a guy.
These guys were drunk. Fight happened. A no shit moment happened. They panicked. They didn't know what to do. I believe the owner of the house, right, has a checkered past. Right. I said in a live not too long ago, a live stream, John O'Keefe, his bruises, had the calling card of Brian Albert. And what did I mean by that? Brian Albert has beaten several Boston cops physically, off duty, drinking. He was a sergeant of a high-speed fugitive apprehension unit. Okay.
Okay.
Now, my belief is he had a black book. Hey, listen, all cops keep a book, right? Especially
and fight. Okay. Now, having said that, once you understand that John is dead, you understand the motives of the people in the house. So why doesn't Brian Albert come out?
Okay, let's rewind that a little.
if I go down, we're all going down.
So these two are men who have been known to get drunk and fight. Okay. Now, having said that, once you understand that John is dead, you understand the motives of the people in the house. So why doesn't Brian Albert come out? Because in some way, you might be able to argue that it looks worse for him that he doesn't come out of the house, because it is so unbelievable for any of us to imagine that this guy, being who he is, doesn't know that this whole group, that all this ruckus is happening on his front lawn and never comes out of the house. It's so unimaginable, particularly because they have an alert dog. They have a freaking German Shepherd sleeping next to him. If a German Shepherd was upstairs in that bedroom window, on the other side of the bedroom window, you would have heard the barking on the dash cam video. That dog was not in the house. Okay.
That's wild. Do you
the reason that Brian Albert does not come outside is
okay. We're going to back that up a little bit because I don't want to miss the important part of the real reason. But do you think that we would really hear the dog barking on the dash cam? There was a lot of wind. So
you would have heard the barking on the dash cam video. That dog was not in the house. Okay. The reason that Brian Albert does not come outside is because John O'Keefe is already dead. So what is he going to do? Think about the situation that puts Brian Albert in.
Already dead. He's not going to go out there and try and fucking pretend to save somebody.
So as a well-trained first responder who was a former Marine and spent 30 years working for the Boston Police Department, he's going to come outside, find John O'Keefe's dead body, and what? Pretend like he doesn't know he's dead? Right? Like, what is he going to do in that situation? Because he's kind of damned if he does and he's damned if he doesn't. He can't tell the other medics, he can't tell the other first responders that he has no pulse, right? Because then he knows that incriminates him. If you've ever watched any Dateline episode, oftentimes the first people at the scene are considered suspects.
Yeah, like Karen, who found him. I know Evil Queen, I really like her too. She just popped up in my algorithm one day. Like I said, probably just because of the Karen Reed trial. And I listened to, this was the first video I listened to. And I was like, holy shit. She just made all the light bulbs go off in my head.
And he would have been smart enough to see that, of course, if he's the guy that runs out of the house, everyone's going to say, well, he was the first one to touch the body. Of course he was involved, right? So that's number one. Number two, okay, let's say we get past that because, the truth is they could have got past that because Karen Reed was on scene. In other words, they're the ones that found him. It would have been Jennifer McCabe running into the house, getting him, right? And having him run down to be the first responder, the first person on the scene to try to resuscitate John O'Keefe. The problem with that is John was already dead. So what is this guy going to do? He's going to say to the other medics, he's going to say to the other first responders that show up, the firefighters, the paramedics on the scene, I've been trying to do chest compressions and his chest is hard as a rock.
Sorry. And I don't mean to laugh, but it's like, she's just going to like, oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Like it would be so awkward.
He's clearly dead. He had been dead for 6 hours, you guys. He was dead a very long time. And it would have been obvious to any of these people.
And also, if you think about it, that's also why Jen McCabe didn't go up to him. That's why they didn't want to go out of the house. They didn't want to be around the dead body because he had been dead for, like she said, probably 5 to 6 hours. So you can see why, like, normal people don't want to go up to somebody that they know has already died. Also, let's not forget Jen said that she had no reason to be worried about the people in the house, right? Exactly. I know that was one of the things, like when Alan Jackson was like, you find somebody dead on your sister's lawn and you're not at all worried like something else could be wrong in the house. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that's I don't know, Eliza, if you were here for the how long to die, why she Googled how long to die in the cold. It was really her Googling like what time do we put John out in the cold to make it look like he had died from hypothermia. Shady fucking
right?
shit.
I'm sure it was obvious to the first responders who are probably not wanting to say, well, I knew he was dead when I got there. They also know that there are other cases where somebody is left outside, does have hypothermia, and is resuscitated. So they would have known that too. And it would have been very hard because they would have been using his temperature as part of the determination about his life or death. Would have been very hard for them to determine that. But my guess is within seconds of arriving at the hospital, the people at the hospital knew he was dead. Nobody's ever come back from being dead after 7 hours, right? So Brian Albert, knowing that, really was not able to come out of the house, right? He would have been then obviously a part of the narrative in some way that he knew he couldn't be. And that is the reason why he never comes out of the house. But if you don't understand that John was dead, then it doesn't make sense. Because, of course, if they had known that a man could have been saved, of course, Brian Albert would have come out of the house to try to save him. But these guys, the whole time, were trying to cover the fact that he was murdered. He was murdered. And because Chloe was directly involved, Brian Albert had some level of culpability. But I personally do not believe that Brian Albert was the aggressor. I believe that Chloe got out of the backyard because she sensed aggression in the front of the house, that Brian Higgins.
Thanks, Evil Queen, for the $5 super chat. It should read that out, hopefully. Let's see. This might be my first text to speech. Come on, let's do it. Let's do it. Good to get through it. Is it not going to read it? That's sad. Watch, it'll go off when I play the video. What the fudge? Why isn't it working? That is super annoying. Thank you, Evil Queen. I'm going to give you the air horn for that.
And John O'Keefe were fighting. Now, some other indicators of a fight were not only John's injuries, which again, you can review in more depth in the video that I made about his injuries. Let's say Brian Higgins, we know, wants to talk to John. He's trying to get John to come to the house. We see him on the waterfall video. We see him pointing and saying, you, come on, let's go. We know he texts him, are you coming here? In all reality, Brian Higgins is probably waiting outside. We also know from the lies that Nicole Albert, Brian Higgins, and Brian Albert tell on the stand that there's a lot of lying about who came into the house, when, and in what order. Brian Higgins does not come into the house when Nicole and Brian Albert walk in. Brian Higgins, in all likelihood, is waiting outside to try to grab John, try to have a conversation with him about the text messages between him and Karen. Now, I don't know whether Brian would have just immediately wanted to start fighting with John, because I think John would have probably been very surprised. I think he was completely clueless about any of this. And I don't think that he perceived correctly what Brian Higgins was trying to communicate to him at the waterfall. I think he just thought it was in jest, like, ha, 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 that kind of thing. So, and Karen clearly was just oblivious to all of this, had no idea. And, you know, you have to ask the question, what in God's name, why would Karen think it was okay to leave John alone with Brian Higgins? I have no idea what the thinking was there, but clearly she did not sense the reality or the danger in the situation.
Well, yeah, she probably didn't think he was going to fucking kill him. I mean, but a normal person wouldn't think that. Okay, let's see. Where are we? 127. Let's go to 131.
You still didn't see a body on that lawn, did you?
I did not.
You're a former firefighter, is that right?
Yes.
Did that put you in a position of being a first responder?
Yes.
And you're currently a law enforcement officer?
Yes.
That puts you in the position of being a first responder, correct?
I'm also a tactical medic, yes.
Which means that you have training.
And we get that from Brian Albert right here.
Some police officer.
What are we getting?
Objection.
What are we getting?
Guilt, shame, deep sadness.
Guilt, shame, sadness, embarrassment,
remorse,
remorse.
as does Brian Albert. And we get that from Brian Albert right here.
Police officer. I was just woken up out of a cold sleep from hanging out the night before. By the time I came downstairs, the police were already in my house. John was already gone. There was nobody to save. I would have taken a bullet for John O'Keefe because he was a fellow cop. That's the most ridiculous question that people always ask. It makes zero sense. What am I supposed to do? Run out front in my underwear and start running yellow tape around the fire hydrant?
So here's the truth in what he just said, and it's really telling. This part is true. John O'Keefe was already gone. What was I supposed to do? Brian Albert gives it away here when he tells us John O'Keefe was already gone.
So in my opinion, I feel like this is why how these people feel like they can live with themselves, because technically they haven't lied. I mean, he was already gone. What was he supposed to do?
He was already dead by the time
He didn't come in the house. He went in the garage.
Came outside. And he's probably telling the truth. He probably would have taken a bullet for John. He did not want John O'Keefe to die. None of these people did. I believe wholeheartedly Jennifer McCabe had a crush on John. I think she had deep feelings for him. I think she had a crush on him. The fact that he had taken in his niece and nephew. John was an attractive guy. Jen, was there a lot of the time to help with the kids. And, his daughter or his niece and her daughter were friendly. She did help John a lot. They were friends. And I think she liked John. So these are not murderers in the sense that they had any intent whatsoever to kill John. But they made a very, very big mistake. For the life of me, probably if they weren't drunk and didn't panic, they would have made the right decision, which would have been for Brian Albert and Brian Higgins to just say that it was a total accident. But they didn't want to suffer the consequences. Obviously, they were scared and they did something very, very stupid. Now, a couple other things about...
Because that was always my question. If it was just an accident, why didn't they just say it was an accident? But they probably just panicked. Like, what are we going to do? This is going to ruin our lives. We have to fix it somehow. And they also, come on, guys. They knew that the blue line is thick and, they were going to have protection.
Details of what happens this night. Number one, there's no blood. And that head wound would have created blood all over the place. The head wound would have created blood all over the place. Number one.
And it was snow. Like, if he actually was killed in the snow, that head wound, there would have been red snow everywhere.
Number two, there's vomit all over the front of John's clothes. Now, if he had just died from a fall and there was no fight before, he could not have vomited on the front of his clothing, right? That's not how it works. In fact, again, from working in substance use disorders for many years, people pass away from alcohol overdose because they pass out and vomit and then choke on their own vomit. That's not what happened here. So why would he have vomit all over the front of him? Oh, because he was fighting, and in that fight, vomited all over himself.
Oh, which that I don't know why, but that broke my heart just to think that, like, he was fighting somebody and then threw up on himself and then was killed. Like, I know that's not the least of his problems, but I don't know why that was just like, oh, that's like.
And then was propelled backwards and hit his head and died.
Over the course of the night, Reed called and texted John 52 times. She then called Jen asking for help to find John. Karen previously telling me she and John had gotten into an argument that night.
All right, so let's talk about Karen's behavior because a couple of things. There's a couple of things here. Now, I had somebody on a live last night say that they think John was hanging out and partying for a few hours before he was killed. Based on his behavior with Karen earlier in the day and throughout the month prior to his death, we get a lot of insight about the way that John would react to Karen's anxious attachment disorder. So what does that mean? I hate the word disorder, so let's just call it anxious attachment style. So Karen is an anxious person in a relationship. That's why she would accuse John of cheating, right? She was always looking for more validation, more of his time, more of his attention. And for John, that was tough because he was an avoidant attachment style, which meant that when he gets emotional, he shuts down. He doesn't tell his feelings easily. And Karen was looking for that. So there was this constant like push and pull going on between the two of them, which typically results, in not a great ending for everybody involved, right? Essentially, what it means is that these two folks can never get their needs met. Karen can never get her needs met from John because he's avoidant. And John is going to be constantly badgered by Karen in a way that he can't tolerate because he's avoidant. He doesn't want to.
Very interesting, but totally makes sense. And that's why she was always so insecure, because he was avoidant and she probably wasn't getting her needs met just with the affirmations, some people need to constantly know that, they are secure in the relationship.
Deal with her anxiety, and it's overwhelming to him. And then when he tries to say, I need time to calm down, she can't tolerate that. So she keeps chasing, and that just drives him further away. And that was the extent. That was everything about their relationship indicates that. Karen very predictably expected John to go in the house and tell her what was going on. And when he didn't, she flipped out. And the immediate assumption from Karen, who was intoxicated at the time, was that the same thing that had happened on New Year's Eve, not even a month earlier, was happening on this night. On New Year's Eve, Karen was in Aruba with John's niece and nephew and about 25 of John's friends. Friends. I don't think there was a lot of family. It was friends. So on New Year's Eve, John had been drinking all day. He wanted to watch one of the bowl games. And Karen was upstairs in the hotel room with his niece and nephew waiting for him to come back. And he never comes back. So she ends up going to look for him. And he ends up, when she finds him, kind of like, hugging or in an embrace with this young, flirty girl that he knows, a friend's sister. And Karen, thinks that they're kissing, that they're in some kind of an embrace that's inappropriate. She goes nuts all over the girl, calls her all these names, and ends up paying for her room as a result, feeling bad about the way she behaved. But the important detail for our purposes here is to understand that Karen immediately jumped to the same assumption on this night, that John was drinking, left her, abandoned her to go party with his friends, forgot about her, and was going to leave her to take care of his niece.
Again.
Which is exactly the same scenario that they were in on New Year's Eve. And Karen's chief complaint, because they were fighting all day that day, up until 9 p.m. when Karen Reed walks into CF McCarthy's, the two of them are bickering back and forth. Now, it begins to come to some resolution later in the day. John cools down, but they had started that morning in a bad place. They got into a fight over Karen getting the kids, his niece and nephew, Dunkin' Donuts. John saying that she spoiled them. This is all old stuff, that was coming up, frustrations that had been long in the works for both of them, and both stressed in life for different reasons. Karen has lots of medical issues. John was clearly in over his head as a single dad with, his niece and nephew, was to get upset at John. John's reaction to that was also pretty consistent. Of John O'Keefe to a party happened. We all phone at 12:32. That he wasn't picking up his phone, that the light wasn't going on, that no time he looked at his phone at all after 12:32. To me, that indicates that something happened almost immediately.
There have been threats to your lives. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Whether it's phone calls, text messages, emails, crazy Unabomber type letters to people's houses.
Brian believes the targeting of witnesses in this case sets a dangerous precedent.
And what's the blueprint?
The blueprint is pick out witnesses, destroy their reputations, attack them, malign them, torture them, torture their kids, torture anybody that ever knew them, make them not testify.
Good try, Mr. Albert.
And while doing so, taint the jury pool.
Nicole, you've been very quiet throughout the interview.
Yeah, I'm just very sad.
Just very sad.
What has happened to all of us? It's just heartbreaking.
All right. So I've just said a lot.
Okay, so what do you guys think? I don't know. I guess Grandma Sherry had her theory already calculated in her mind. But the whole why the 227 Google search happened was to figure out when to put John out there to make it look like he died from hypothermia. Brian Albert didn't come out of the house because he already knew John was dead. There was nobody to save. Oh my God, these people. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to show you guys, I don't know if you've seen these photos. These, I guess, Microdots posted this. So I guess the defense has had these for a while, but obviously they didn't want to post them, just due to, you know, the trial. They wanted to make sure that if they needed to use it as evidence. Okay, so this is the door, and we'll go back to the front of 34 Fairview. Okay, that didn't help at all. Okay, so basically, and I don't know if I can get any, nope, I can't get any closer. Okay, so front door, side door that went into, I think, like a entertainment room, and then the garage door. Okay, garage door's right here. If you can see my pointer. Okay, so there's the garage door. So apparently the new owners of 34 Fairview are, you know, pro Karen Reed. They gave the defense like full access to the house. So this is what they were thinking, and let me see if we can zoom in. So this is not blood. This is supposedly paint. Okay, this is all paint, and people are like, "Well, did they throw paint there because of like to try and cover the blood?" But I guess, Dr. La Posada described a pattern like this right here. How it kind of looks like a, you know, when you like draw clouds, you do like that thing. They're saying that this kind of matched the pattern of the wound on the back of his head. But like, how weird, like to use. I mean, I guess if you're going to use paint to cover blood, you might as well use blood color paint. But yeah, so that kind of looks like what he could have hit his head on. So like think the upper part of the injury there, and then like if his head fell in the bottom there. Oh, it's a lot to take in, but I had to share these theories with you guys because, like I said, when I heard all of this the other night, I'm like, holy shit, it all makes sense. Now, the one thing that Samantha, so this is her YouTube channel. I know Grandma's been posting it in the chat. Thank you so much, Grandma. There it is again. This is her channel. She has stated, you know what? Let's just watch her 4-minute.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Yeah, true, Eliza. Under the cement where the wall is of blood. Yep, I know, because I think that's how they caught Kristen. Was it Kristen Smart? Didn't they find blood in like the soil?
First, I want to say congratulations. I'm going to create content. Will now be my, but his then cover up and then for framing Karen Reed.
Okay, so this she posted 5 days ago after the exoneration. I just wanted to kind of show you guys what she plans on doing now, because I'm definitely going to keep an eye out on our videos and see what she's up to, because I mean, it's definitely something I could get down with.
And I personally will not stop until I see justice for John O'Keefe, and that will now be my new cause, if you will. So for those of you that are asking me, am I still going to create content? I have more content than the world has ever known. And because most of the content that I was already creating and producing was about what really happened on those early morning hours, I will just keep doing more of that. And so, because my daughter is dragging me to 2 nights at the Stray Kids in New York City, I won't be back until tomorrow night, where we will celebrate this incredible accomplishment.
I think that had already happened. I think, yeah, 5 days ago. So Friday already happened. She's not celebrating. I think she had a live stream. But anyways, make sure to follow I Don't Belong Here. And hopefully she can get, I don't know. Like I said, there have been podcasts that have stirred up enough dirt, and reinvigorated. I know that there's a lot of public eye on this case and getting it reopened, and the people in Canton are pretty fucking amazing. They didn't stop. They went to all of those select board meetings, showed up and raised hell. So Sandra Birchmore is next. We got to get justice for her, and then hopefully we can get justice for John O'Keefe. Hopefully, I don't think at the same time. I think it'll take a while for them to do the John O'Keefe, but I hope one day that they do get justice. Ooh, alrighty. Well, thank you guys for hanging out. I hope you guys have a good rest of your evening. Replay crew, please let me know what you think in the comments of these new revelations. If I'm dumb and you already knew this, or if this is connecting dots for you as well. All right, well, I hope you guys have a good rest of your night. Make sure to like the video if you haven't. And then I think YouTube's going through their shit where they like unsub and turn your notifications on. So make sure your notifications are on. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.